Master.
What's wrong, Igor? Do you not like my playing?
I want to hear no evil.
You're listening to Hear No Evil. We are your hosts. I'm Chris Copeland.
And I'm Justin McGill.
And we're excited. This is our first one.
Yay!
And we're doing a Halloween episode.
Ooh.
Which is awesome, right? And did you notice there's a full moon tonight?
I did. How ironic.
So I think literally all the celestial bodies are aligning for us right now. No?
They're here with us.
Right, exactly. Yeah. We've got a nice quiet studio.
We do.
So we're set up. We've got some videos coming out, a rundown of what we built and how we built this here. I mean, nothing too crazy, but something they can check out online.
Absolutely. Through YouTube. We'll have those on YouTube, and I'll have them linked through our Facebook and Twitter, and anywhere we can put them, you'll see them.
Right. And you can hit it all at our central location, which is our website.
It's hearnoevilpodcast.com.
Nice. So, like I said, I'm excited. We're getting ready to go. We've got some great things on the docket today. We're going to do some church ghost stories at some point.
Church ghost stories.
Church ghost stories. Yeah. I mean, and it's
the ultimate good versus evil.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Exactly. And I mean, obviously, this is a Christian podcast, but can't beat a good ghost story. Yeah. And when a church is involved, I mean, we're talking real stuff here, people. We also have an issue that we've had here locally, which is actually going around the country, and that is going to be
the creepy clowns. They're popping up everywhere, but we'll get to the bottom of that.
Right. We're going to get to the bottom of that.
Figure that out.
And we're also going to talk about just belief systems in general when it comes to Halloween with Christianity.
You're listening to Hear No Evil. Follow Chris and Justin on Twitter at Hear No Evil Pod. That's Hear No Evil POD.
This is an original podcast based around the views of Christians, but maybe not your everyday Christians.
Correct.
We're not trying to be holier than thou.
Not at all.
But we are believers.
That we are.
Jesus, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. I am what you would consider a born-again Christian. I'm a former youth pastor and a former radio host, talk show host. My friend Justin, give us the rundown.
Well, I can't say that I was a radio host, but I have had some experience in wanting to do something with the media. As far as being a Christian, I would say as of late, I've gotten more involved and more spiritual.
And you do a lot of media stuff for your church, which is actually, I believe, your father-in-law.
For my father-in-law, that's correct. He's a praise and worship minister at my church.
So you do work for a church, actually, yourself on the side.
Pretty much.
Nice. Just wanted to give you a quick rundown of, who you're listening to, who we are, but obviously, if you've listened to our last names, we are of the Irish-Scottish descent. Now, when we met, this was not the plan.
So he says.
Right, exactly. So maybe it was God's plan, but
it was at a tilted kilt.
It was at a tilted kilt.
So maybe it was planned.
Man,
we saw those checkered skirts and we were like, let's do this.
We're going to get burned for being Christians on a podcast, having met at tilted kilt, but the Lord works in mysterious ways.
He sure does.
Not in the Bible, by the way.
But I love to quote it as if it were. As if it were really the thing. Yes. Good job.
So, and myself, actually, I'm kind of more of a, what would you call that? Like a smattering,
Smattering.
A plethora of different, I'm Irish-Scottish on my mom's side. Okay, here's the breakdown. I'm a half Colombian, half Scot, raised in a Mexican household in a black neighborhood. So I pretty much have dirt on everybody. So, which makes me feel more comfortable going into pretty much any setting, but I'm as white complected as you can get. So, you would never know.
White and pasty. Irish and Scottish, as far as I know. I know that there's a university named after me, and I hope that one day I'll get to go to Canada to McGill University, and I think, oh, you're the long lost ancestor, and I have all these riches available to me.
Right.
Probably just in my head, but I'm very hopeful. Right. Other than that, I've been told that I have some black Irish, which has to do with kind of Spanish and Irish together. That's why I'm more dark haired and dark toned, and
really
have been mistaken for what I've been told is a very handsome Spanish man.
Wow.
By one person. So I took that as a compliment that it was intended to be.
Well, there you go.
My fiance disagrees, but what does she know?
Well, you handsome Spaniard, you.
Thank you.
We are, but still, at the end of the day, just a couple of white guys. Yeah, exactly. Living in West Texas, where I think we may be the only two white guys. We found each other.
We did.
At a tilted kilt. So there we go.
Now that I've said it just sounds not as exciting as I thought it was when we first said it.
We built it up to a level and then we popped the bubble. Is what happened.
It was
but okay, so today we've got our Halloween episode, which is awesome.
I'm excited about it.
I know.
Who'd love to be spooked?
This is my favorite time of year. I mean, it really is. So I'm getting married next year. It's actually going to be. Thank you. So are you? I believe sometime
in the future. We haven't planned a date, but it should be sometime in the future.
We have ours set for October, and it wasn't because it was stylish. We found out it was stylish. We thought it was just gonna, we save a little money.
Trendsetters, you.
Yeah, I know. And we love Halloween. With that being said, it's kind of weird being a Christian that likes Halloween. Not from my perspective, but there are a lot of people that tend to look down on it.
Right.
So, and I understand, I grew up in an area that was very much about Halloween. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas. For you guys. Yeah, I have to. Yeah. You don't have to there, but everywhere else you have to. They assume I'm out of the Wizard of Oz or something, But I lived a number of years in Virginia Beach as well. My dad's from Salem, Massachusetts, so it's a very different culture when you get on the East Coast, even from Virginia all the way up into New England. You've got a culture of witchcraft and all kinds of things, if it was really witches or not, who's to be said. But
the History Channel said so, Chris.
Exactly.
So it must be true.
Right. The crucible, obviously.
Right, exactly.
But, the question here is there anything wrong with being a Christian and celebrating Halloween?
Speaking personally, Halloween hasn't been too big of a holiday other than just, I can stuff my face with candy and I love to watch horror movies. So I guess on that same line, because if I like horror movies and I'm a Christian, then that kind of contradictory of itself. But I like to see more of an ultimate fight against good and evil. And so that's how I choose to, I don't take it literally either.
Right.
So to me, Halloween, I don't take literally. I don't see it as a time to worship, the devil and do whatever. But it's just kind of it's a thing to do. It's not I guess that's how I see it.
Okay.
Just
all right. So it's just a thing to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. Again, your future father-in-law is a pastor.
Yes, sir.
And he has a little bit of a different view on this.
When I first met my fiance, I like to think of her as more of the radical one of the family. She's not as conservative as the other ones, but they don't share the same views as I've been brought up with. It's just been me and my mom, and so I don't really think she cared what she told me as long as I was alive and she knew I was well and didn't have to worry about it.
As long as you didn't lose a limb, you were good to go.
She's like, whatever, it's fine. I'm used to, there was a Rocky Horror Picture Show that they were going to show at our local, downtown theater and have a reenactment of, we got to throw
I love Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And, but when I asked her to go with me, she's like, "Oh no, we don't do that now." She says she would, but before I'm pretty sure she told me flat no. And then she gave me this long spiel about how her family doesn't participate in dressing up or doing any of that kind of stuff. They don't do anything. They just see it as bad.
Define bad. Is this witchcraft? Is it
you're just entertaining? I think he said it was you're entertaining bad spirits.
Okay.
And the more attention you give to it, the more it's going to have the potential to do harm. I guess that's the best way I can think he was trying to say.
Right. But I kind of see it on the same level, but the more credibility we give to it as an evil day, I believe, the more potential for harm.
That's how I see it. So if I don't take it seriously, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to give energy to it.
But now you do hear about groups or sects of people that go out and you hear weird things like taking cats and putting them in a bag and throwing, drowning kittens in a river or something like that. I've heard weird stuff like that before, and then they say, well, it was all part of a demonic seance or something. And I'm sure there are people out there that are, doing some kind of ritual on All Hallows Eve.
Well, but I just can't see me as a kid dressing up as, even when I was a baby, I was like a little pumpkin. I can't see me dressed up as a little pumpkin, getting some candy as being like, oh, he's worshiping Satan. I don't see as anything like that. And even as I'm grow older and, I had whatever costume I wore, something stupid, I'm sure. But I didn't see it as entertaining bad spirits. I didn't put that connotation to it. I didn't.
Right. It was just about candy and having fun.
Some candy.
Right. Exactly.
I wanted some Three Musketeers and I was going to go home and I was going to watch whatever horror movie or Halloween Rugrats special was on, I guess, back in the day. And that was into it.
Right. And I think a a lot of people look at us like we are the cross gender of religion. You know, it's like we believe in God and all this stuff, but this one day we're going to do this. They looked at us when I was a kid like we went out and got our candy, and then we went home and our parents taught us how to like conjure a demon out of a Ouija board, you know? So just this one day though, we have church next week, you know? So right, exactly. Yeah. So sin on Halloween, be forgiven on, Sunday morning.
I will say though that I remember going to fall festivals, not, traditional trick-or-treating.
Okay.
The few times
like
that
the Harvest Fest and that.
Yeah,
kind of
like, stuff that never tried to say, okay, come on guys, this is a Halloween festival. Let's get real. I mean, you can put all the scarecrows and hay bales you want. Right. But we know why you're doing this because you're doing it around Halloween. So, I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to call it Halloween, but it's a church participating in the same kind of.
Right. But then you also got to look at like they have these, like they used to have like these ancient rituals where they would have like a Harvest Fest, and cultures would sacrifice a living person, maybe even a virgin or something. To the harvest, to the harvest gods and what have you, So I guess I really don't see the difference. So I'm agreeing with you, obviously. Right. I guess for me, it's just the same thing. Don't take it so seriously.
Yeah. Don't give it then if you don't think it's real. I mean, I know like in some of the horror movies that I remember seeing, I'm going to reference this, even though it's probably nothing legit, but like in some of the Freddy Krueger movies, one of the things I remember they would say is if you don't give him energy, he's not real. And there's a lot of things like that. It's like if you don't believe in it, it's not real, and you can just persevere through it. So it's the same thing with this. If you don't get a lot of energy, it's just a day that's going to come and go. And you go back to life as normal.
That is true. And I think my parents tried to instill that in me in a very early age, not to be afraid. So like my fiance, she's afraid of everything. She's afraid of her own shadow. The wind blows a little too heavy. It's the end of the world.
She topples over.
Yeah. And my parents didn't allow me to do that. I keep having to tell her, you can't be afraid of everything. And when I was like in Kansas City, they have some of the best haunted houses in the country. Oh, yeah. And I actually worked at them when I was in high school. But when I went to my first one when I was like 9, and I was scared to death because these are really legit haunted houses. Some of them are like 6 stories high, and they take like an hour to get through. And the only reason that I got the job was because I was part of this acting troupe in high school, and they hired actors to be in it. I mean, and these are very elaborate, setups.
Productions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very legitimate situation. I mean, like I remember they redid one of the floors, and it cost like $2 million for one floor out of like a 6-story haunted house. I mean, you can imagine what they put into this. And I went to this haunted house like for the first time. It was actually called. We went to the Main Street Morgue, and the Main Street Morgue, and that was the first one I went to, and I didn't make it in. They had like bloody rats on the floor and all this stuff when you were walking in and hanging from the chandeliers like bones and stuff, and it freaked me out. And I booked it out of there, which my stepdad was so furious with me because he paid like $20 for me to get in. These things are expensive. I took off and I went and got in the car with my aunt, who would never go in. So she's like, oh, I don't blame you, But then they went to another one, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to do it. And they were like, you better go. And I went in scared to death almost the whole way through. And it was near the very end. And my mom kept saying, you got to go. And there's like a chicken exit every floor. And she's like, no, you got to keep going. You got to fight through this. These things aren't real. They're make believe. Look, this isn't a vampire. This isn't a ghoul. This is
some actor.
Yeah. And so she taught me to actually, like, she would start like talking smack to them, like bagging on them. So by the very end, she's got me doing the same thing. Yeah. So I really only seriously enjoyed maybe the last 5-10 minutes of it, but at that point I realized the fun in it. I had overcome my fear, and at that point I was just like, I want to go to every haunted house that ever
to see what they're doing.
Exactly. And I think that's a big part of it for me, and what my parents passed on to me was that ability to face your fear, overcome your fear. Now, there are still some freaky horror movies that you'll go see that I won't go anywhere near.
Love it.
But I do love my zombie films. Even before it was real popular, I would watch all the black and whites. I knew every zombie film out there, and now it's just kind of gotten oversaturated. But
I have told you before that I said I like horror movies, and the way I see it is it's good versus evil. If a few people have to die during it, that's just how it has to go.
So be it.
Too bad.
There you go.
The good will survive. That's all that matters.
But again, they're still alive in real life.
True.
So
they go to heaven, obviously.
And you don't feel like a lot of people will go, oh, well, you're just desensitized from going to see horror movies.
No, I mean, To be honest, and I don't know if this was a good thing. I mean, I remember my dad, for whatever reason, left me alone, like 2 or 3 years old, on the couch. And the very first horror movie I ever saw was Freddy Krueger. And I got to see Robert Englund last November, and I told him that. And he was like, it's bad parenting. But
He told you
he was
that.
kidding with me, obviously.
Right.
But, that was the first thing he said. I was like,
He probably wasn't. There's got to be some
no, he
truth
laughed. I
behind
mean,
that.
he was just like, oh, that sounds like a great dad. I was like, I mean, it doesn't, I'm not going to grow up and like, have, knife gloves and whatever,
Right.
go stab people. I just saw the cartoonish, thing about it. I mean, I know it kills people and that's not a good thing, but.
And I do believe there is a level of desensitization in this country.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, obviously, in this world. Let's just say on this planet at this point in life, I think there always has been. Just like our TV shows, like things we will watch while we're eating dinner now. Our grandparents are like, "I'm going to puke,"
Absolutely.
So there is yes, we've been desensitized, obviously.
But it helped out because, I'm not like you having the fear early on in haunted houses. I never had that. I mean, obviously being startled by something, that's going to do something to anybody, it's...
Right.
But the clowns or whatever they are, the monstrous things, doesn't scare me.
Right.
I'm more intrigued, we went to a haunted house recently and, my fiance always pushes me to the front, like it's going to do something to me. And that's always, they always follow her around. I'm like, oh, hey, this is Monse.
Oh, she's the target.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. I love it. One of the guys, we were playing around with him because he stood with us the whole time, probably like through a good fourth of the thing. And I was like, he was just dressed in a complete black suit with like these glowing eyes. Like, oh, hey, black guy with the glowing eyes. This is since you're going to be with us for a while, this is Monse and I'm Justin. And, just, get to know each other, and this guy's like, she smells really good.
Right.
I'm like, she does. I don't know. I think it's like Chanel No. 5. I don't know what she wears, something like that, but it just, that's how I treat it. And I get startled when they jump out at me, but I'm not like, I see the fun and I try to get, just go with it.
But there is a difference between like watching a horror movie that you can turn off and like being a little kid thrown into a haunted house. It's very real at an age when you have your imaginations on overload.
But I just would see the fun in it, I guess. I guess my imagination would kind of be my defense mechanism. I understood that horror movies weren't real. So, I mean, when I go to a haunted house, they're usually mimicking something I see in a horror movie.
Right. Okay.
So, I guess that's how I saw it. I mean, obviously, if I see someone try to recreate the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, I obviously know, well, that's not legit.
Right.
I know it's
right.
like, I'm getting chased.
Right.
Just kind of go with it.
Until your neighbor goes psycho.
I just saw a guy's head fall off and that wasn't a prop.
Right. And this wasn't a fixed YouTube video or something. Yeah.
God, about horror movies. Maybe I was wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Something like that.
Right.
Then I'll count my mistakes. But till then,
Till then, it's all fun and games.
it's all fun and games. Like, just go with the show.
Right. Yeah.
go with it.
I got you. Well, and so if you are, obviously, with us trying to build a Christian podcast, we're going to have Christians out there and they're not going to agree with us.
Not at all.
So even with our opening episode is the Halloween episode, so.
But it needs to be talked about. And I think that's why I'm excited to do this podcast, because how can you live in this world and you hear all these things and not think, you just don't think about it?
Right.
It's there.
I know.
You do think about it and you don't talk about it. So I was like,
That's true.
That's where we come in.
It was just, this is a no-no,
yeah.
so.
So that's where the name came from too. I mean, you don't want to hear no evil. People think of all that stuff as sinful. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I figure you don't want to talk about it, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I don't see it as demonic. I just see it as, especially like I said, like, in some of those formidable years, living on the East Coast, it was just part of it, witches and the idea of witches.
Intrigues me though. I mean, I would love to go to the museums up there and just
It's awesome.
try to understand their thought process. I mean, now it seems so primitive in some ways, they're what they did. I mean, I would just, have to, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it was just like, rich fat cats trying to get rid of their mistresses most of the time, and there have been some historians that have given some credibility to that kind of thing. Yeah. But it is really weird because there's wherever you are on the East Coast, especially starting like in that North Carolina, Virginia area, and then heading up, there is always a story of a witch.
Oh yeah,
that was buried nearby. There was actually one that was buried not far from where we lived. I mean, it literally it was across the street and through this field, and there was this old church that had been around. You're talking Virginia. I'm talking original 13 colonies, Virginia. Okay, so this is maybe one of the original churches. That thing's been there forever. It's a historical site. They have the original, graveyard that was right next to the church. and they have one of these above ground caskets. You know what I'm talking? Those,
Yeah.
like a, cement tomb, but it's just for one person. And they always said that it was the tomb of what they called the Witch of Pungo. And Pungo is kind of like it's an outskirt. It's like another town outside, kind of like what would be considered like a suburb,
Right.
I guess the story was she was buried there at one point and maybe she was moved or something like that. So I don't know if there's actually a body in there, but something was inscribed on top.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Here lies Witch of Pongo.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a couple feet to the right. We just
Right.
we couldn't. They did it here, and that's all we can do.
No, but I could never figure out if she was actually buried there or if she was moved to Pungo, because
Okay. That's what I mean.
It's a little bit to the right.
It's a little bit to the right. He laid us cement here. Well, it's done.
Right. Oh well. Yeah.
She's dead. She's
Mistakes
gone. She
happen.
don't care.
She doesn't know. So, but so you would get on. You'd look on top of this tomb and. You could tell words were chiseled in at some point, but it's so old that it's gone away. So you do what you do. You get a crayon, you get some paper.
You get a crayon, like you specifically got a crayon, or
I specifically got a crayon, and I'm talking.
I don't think I'd have done that, but I guess you did.
And I'm talking like 3rd to 6th grade was at this time we were living in this area and. Yes, you got a crayon. Haven't you ever done that? Like, like you get a leaf and you
go
put
over
the
to
leaf.
get like a stencil kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So you just get it, and I had crayons aplenty.
So you were playing on a witch's tomb.
Yeah.
And your mom was.
My mom was at home. I mean, across the street.
So
this is not
you were
far.
playing in a graveyard, pretty much.
Yeah, well, we didn't know if it was a witch's tomb. We just were. Yeah, we were. It was a little graveyard. It's not a huge thing. Like my mom would we'd go take walks around it and stuff. I mean, it was just this old graveyard that you couldn't read the headstones. So we take this, we go out there and we're scared to death. Okay, I think this is a witch. We're going to see what it says, and we're doing the rubbing on it, and you could pick out some words. And we remember I remember there was like some stuff on there that had said things like, when the moon is full and the stars are aligned and something like that. And then you couldn't read it for a little bit. And then it said something about resurrection and a few like some weird things like that, and I didn't know if this was like, now I go back and I know like maybe like a resurrection thing might refer to something in the Bible,
Right.
because they put quotes, they put scriptures. Yeah. But then when you've got like the moon is full and the stars are aligned, that's what freaked us out. And that's what still freaks me out to this day when I think about it, is that a lot of people believe that was like an incantation that was put on this tomb. Now, I don't know why it would be put on a tomb in a church, next to a church, on what would be considered, I guess, holy land.
Could be a warning.
Maybe, but it said something like, read this at a time, and that was it. Like that, like read this, and then it would like go blank. You couldn't get a rubbing off of it like at a certain time. So a lot of people believe like if you had this original incantation and you read it at this certain time on this certain night when the moon was in a certain place.
She'd be ready to party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's back, baby.
That dude's gonna pop off. She's like, let's do this.
Right. And you got to remember, I'm trying to set the scene, but it's the East Coast during the fall. It is the hocus pocus scene. It really is.
If that's the case, heck, if Bette Midler or Sarah Jessica Parker's in there, heck, I'll read that incantation. Let's do this.
Exactly. I would read an incantation if we could get Bette Midler just to come on our show. Right. And now you're mine. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sarah, run for your life. But yeah, so I don't know. I just grew up around that kind of thing, and it freaked me out. Obviously, you're kind of playing with this dangerous thing in your mind, but it's more.
But it's fake. Saying that, but by you saying that, as far as like what is a witch to you, you got that from somewhere, so you give it that already.
Yes, yeah. You give it some power.
And like you just said, you were scared at the graveyard. Like I can go to the cemetery and feel okay, but the only reason I wouldn't is because a body's going to start grabbing, hands going to grab me from the ground, like in Thriller.
Right, but you never know, especially when you're a little kid and you're easily influenced, and all you know of witches is
your
what you
connotation is
TV.
like to be scared, and mine maybe at first be scared, but then I'm like, I hadn't seen The Walking Dead wasn't around when we were kids, so
Right.
if I saw a zombie, the only thing I go off is Michael Jackson feels like, dance scene. Here we go.
Right. But I mean, I try to go back and I see it as I did, through my eyes with those feelings at that age where there's so much unknown, and then all the witches I knew were from movies.
Yeah.
This was before Hocus Pocus. This was,
like you
they
said,
were evil and free. Yeah. And there were also all the stories that surrounded it in that area. Like here, a lot of the weird stuff you hear is like chupacabra and, what's the Mexican boogeyman?
Oh, I know.
There's like a specific name for him. There's
The Mexican boogeyman.
there's a Mexican boogeyman.
The Mexican boogeyman.
Look that up real quick.
I mean, I want to know what he's dressed as. For one, the Mexican boogeyman. Oh, the Kukui.
The Kukui.
The Kukui.
Yes. Okay. So the Kukui, which Mexican mothers would tell their children that if you didn't do your,
He was going to come get you.
yeah, if you didn't clean,
Like the monster under your bed.
yeah, if you didn't make your bed or you didn't clean your room or something, Kukui was going to get you, which I think is even worse than anything we've talked about, that you're going to frighten your own children like that. But yeah, so every region has their stuff, and there it was very much witch based. And I mean, everywhere you went, there were museums, there would be something. I mean, especially like my dad, who is from Salem, he said, yeah, there was always like a couple that they said, okay, that family may have had some lineage or something. Right. But he said they didn't give it too much credibility. It just happened to be part of the lore, if you will, of the area. Like right now, they go up there whenever they can. Like they try to go once a year around this time because they do like the witch festival, but it's mostly a money making thing for tourists. So they never had it before, but they do have the big party and the big witch festival like they had in Hocus Pocus, while the kids are running around and the parents are off doing their own thing.
Getting wasted.
Yeah, exactly.
Shame on you, Disney. I did not know that till I was older, that how bad this movie is as far as what adults are doing.
Right. They're too drunk to actually pay attention to what their children are telling them.
Shame on you.
Exactly. And now you're mine.
Exactly.
So yeah, we would go down to this, there was this other what we just called it the duck pond, not too far away. We would ride our bikes down maybe, like a quarter of a mile away or so. And we played there all the time. This beautiful pond, trees right up next to it. I mean, it was just really, really pretty area, and you can go fish and, just hang out and play. And as a little kid, it's great to have that next to the water. I remember catching frogs there and stuff like that.
You're so white. No, I'm kidding.
I know, right? So we went down there and we actually did a field trip in elementary school of weird things that were in our own neighborhood that we didn't know about. We actually spent the whole day just walking around 2 square miles, learning things we never knew before, like about the old church and when it was built and stuff like that. And they had this bell that was like this original bell that came over from England. That was, that was their church bell and stuff like that. We got to ring the bell. They take us over. At one point, we end up at the duck pond, and we're like, sweet, this is our favorite spot. We love the duck pond, And we get over there, we find out that they have these really tall, beautiful trees with these huge leaves in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And they'll stand incredibly high and kind of lean over the water. And there was this guy that was out there, and he was giving us the history of the duck pond and some things that had happened there. I don't remember, different meetings and things like that had happened over time. And in this city, this is where they originally signed the first, I don't know, who knows?
Decree of whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he was, as a historian, he was showing us, he was like, now, if you look up into these tall trees, you see these trees that are hanging over the water here? And we're like, yeah. And if you look up there, you can see those spikes. And we're looking, and I had seen them. I remember seeing them when I was, before, but I never thought too much about it. But they were literally big metal spikes. Okay. In the trees, real high. Okay. And especially this one that really leaned way out over the lake or the pond, if you will. And he was saying that this was where they would dunk witches in this area.
With water.
Yeah. And they would use these spikes and these ropes and kind of use it like a pulley system to drop witches.
Yeah, and they thought they could fly out.
Well, okay. The theory was, and this was really weird. It was they would do it a couple different ways, which this makes no sense whatsoever. So if you've ever seen a Monty Python, and the quest for the Holy Grail, then you'll understand this. But what they did was they'd take their right wrist or their right thumb, and they would tie it to their left big toe or their left ankle, like that. So they take their right wrist, tie it to their left ankle. They take their left wrist and tie it to their right ankle. So they're crossed, and they're like in this, like almost like this fetal position with their knees out. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And they would like winch them up there, and dunk them down. And the theory was if they were the way that they had their body, if they were human, they would sink. If they were a witch, they would float. Okay, so they would have the ability to float pretty much to save themselves. So in any instance, in this scenario, the victim dies.
Well, of course.
They either drown
Right.
as a human and they're considered not guilty.
It's like, oops.
Yeah, I know. Our bad.
Well,
It's the third one this week.
We'll find one. Trust.
Eventually.
Someone will float. It's like they're also those guys. If you could just untie my thumbs, I could get up there. I'm
Right.
telling you, I could float.
Until then, we're going to need you to open up another acre in the cemetery over
Right.
here. Yeah. But one day. But yeah. But then, and then if they float, then we're going to find them and we're going to execute them. I mean, it's just.
Maybe they knew that. They're doing it on purpose.
That's what I'm saying. It's rich fat cats that were getting rid of their mistresses. That's what I think this is. I really believe that that's what this was about.
Other reasons for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, or a lot of people thought it was just like drug use or something. They were acting really weird, so they assumed, Yeah.
So they weren't that educated because they didn't take physics. They would know that wasn't going to work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I was saying like the Monty Python thing,
Right,
So
exactly.
if she weighs the same as a duck, but she's a witch, So yeah, I mean, it's
duck's like, huh?
You're right, exactly. So I mean, there's no rhyme or reason
my
to it.
gosh.
They just like came up with this stuff, They got some guy to sign off on it,
course.
So it's like Colin Powell, Okay,
Yeah.
just get him to say that there are weapons of mass destruction,
Yeah.
so we can go into Iraq,
Of course, you get multiple people to say it, so it must be true.
Yeah, exactly. So get the priest to say she's crazy so we can throw her in the, so we can test out our theory,
Oh, yeah.
Air quotes, so
yeah.
it's just, I don't know. But it was, it really changed the way I looked at that duck pond after that. And when Ashley and I went there a couple of years ago, I was looking up there.
But I mean, other than the heinous act that occurred, what were you expecting to happen at the duck pond?
I don't know. It just changed the look. I mean, like
in your head, what happened?
It turned my holy ground into unholy ground, but it was kind of freaky, but it was cool at the same time. Like this really weird, wild stuff happened here over 100 years ago, a couple hundred years ago.
So I guess like the supernatural I don't get that feeling. I know like watching some movies where you're in the woods, a bunch of hillbilly cannibals. I mean, that could actually happen, I guess. I mean, if you're in in the Appalachian Mountains where you shouldn't be to begin with, that seems more real to me than meeting me at a lake and Jason Voorhees with the drowned witch is like, I found her, something like that.
Right. But there's something about it that makes it real because it really happened there.
True.
So you are connected to it in some way, especially when you've been there, you've had your hands in the dirt, you've been in the water, you've been on a boat in the lake. And then you think back to that.
Oh, I wouldn't get on the lake though.
Yeah. Oh, you wouldn't get on the lake? No.
No, that's okay. I'm good.
But you realize I've been out on a paddle boat or I've been out on a little rowboat in this little pond to go fishing. And there could be like a witch skull, like who they thought was a witch.
Well, I hope it's not the one that was supposed to be buried in the tomb. You're like, they lied to me. I found it right here. It's crap.
It was 4 feet to the right. Yeah. So.
It's like if the moon is lit, you can see her skull in the lake. That's what she really is.
Right, exactly. But you see in your brain, you're like, they're all tied together. There are witches everywhere, But it was just more than anything. It wasn't that I was super scared about it. It was fun to be scared about it. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thing that people have a problem with. Why do you want it to be fun? I think that's being as Christians now. I think that's why people have a bother. Why do you want to be fun? What do you? I mean, that's how I feel like maybe. I guess my fiance's dad. That's what I feel like he's saying is you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
If something bad and evil. Why are you enjoying it if you know it's supposed to be wrong?
Isn't that the whole point, though? I mean, it's not. Yeah.
You're tempting yourself. Like you're just. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't see it like that. I see it like today, when I go to haunted houses and stuff, after working in them for 4 years, I know all the bells and whistles. I know where the puppeteer is. I've been to the show. I've seen the strings. But I purposefully try to psych myself out of that mindset so I can enjoy the haunted house. I know it's not scary. I know nobody's going to come out and actually kill me. I know this guy dressed up in the Jason Lee Voorhees.
Not by accident.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope they hired sane people, to do this right. But I open myself up to it to allow myself to have fun with it. I don't think there's anything demonic about that whatsoever, because I'm not giving any credibility to Satan or demons or anything on that level. I am just simply enjoying a scary moment. I don't like anything that's crazy, overly, demonic or anything like that. I do enjoy the, like you said, I will enjoy the good versus evil, the G versus E,
That's how I see it. Because that's how it happens. That's what happens. I mean, in every story about, witches, whatever, in the movies, they're dead and gone. Like they come, they do their thing, and then they're killed off. I mean, that's the same story for every of those kind of movies, for the most part.
Exactly. So, but what does happen in your life if you're a Christian and then something evil does happen? So you do come across something evil. I've had it happen to me. I have actually been approached by a guy that I absolutely believe was possessed of the devil. And he approached me specifically and with purpose when I was a youth pastor. But I don't think if I was at least a little desensitized to some of these things, that I would have been able to handle it. I already had trouble handling it a little bit, but I was able to compose myself because I knew I was protected. I was protected by God.
But I think that's the purpose of it all, is it makes you cling. It makes you reinforce, what you may not be taking too seriously in the moment. You're just...
right.
Which maybe that's the whole purpose of all that stuff to begin with. Maybe that's the whole purpose of all that stuff, is just to make you cling closer to faith, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah, that you mean that kind of experience?
Yeah.
That kind of,
That's the whole point of all. In most of the, I keep referencing horror movies, but like in most of the movies I've seen that happens, it's always preyed on the weak, is what they say, the weak faith. They're the too innocent, the ones that are just too oblivious to...
And I do believe in that situation, he was coming to test my faith. I do believe that. But I think if you're too scared of everything, everything's, like...
They say fear is what helps make you weak. I mean,
Yeah, and that's just like getting back to that, my mom taking me through the haunted house and building that. I mean, it taught me not to be afraid, and it taught me to overcome my fears. Right. So then when something like that did happen, at first, I was freaked out because I very quickly figured out what was going on. And it scared me. It really did. It scared me as my flesh, as a human being. But then it was just like, stay calm. There's nothing he can do to you. No, there's nothing this guy can do to you. That was a freaky, maybe a story for another time. Right.
You're listening to the Hear No Evil podcast. To catch up on old episodes or donate, visit hearnoevilpodcast.com.
Bottom line, what have we figured out? That, if you want to believe that, if you don't want to participate in Halloween, then
just don't do it.
Yeah, we have no problem with that. So if you don't like us, I don't really care. But we hope you do. We hope you enjoy the show. Absolutely. And we're going to be, because we're going to be doing this on a regular basis. And again, we are not...
Escape us.
Right.
You will not escape us.
Now it sounds like a horror movie. Yeah. But here's the thing. That's the great thing about living in this country, being able to build a podcast like this, say what we want to say, voice our opinion, and we want everybody else to be involved in that.
Absolutely.
So
I know personally, I don't want it to be a fire and brimstone.
Oh no.
I want it to be more of like a thing that can do good things. Hey, put us on, listen to us. We know you experience it every day in life anyways. Exactly. You may not want to talk about it with the people that you live with. Let's talk about it with us.
Right, exactly.
Why not?
And we're going to try to do some things in the future, maybe do some live shows where people can get involved. But right now, obviously, you can go to our website. It's
hearnoevilpodcast.com.
hearnoevilpodcast.com. We have links up for, what do we have? Instagram, YouTube page.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
The planet will be saturated with Hear No Evil.
Snapchat, Pinterest. I will make crafts. You will follow me. You will find us. We'll find you.
Right. little evil and heavenly monkeys
Exactly.
on the on the Pinterest. All right.
I like their show, but damn, he makes good crafts.
And we want you to comment. We want you to tell us like why you feel this way. Like why do you not celebrate Halloween?
What are your views? I mean, everybody has different views, and we're not going to judge anybody. And we would hope that you would just,
Not judge us.
not judge us. Be kind. We're all, amicable about it. We're going to be good to each other.
And the truth is, we're all in the Christian family, so it doesn't
Absolutely,
matter
absolutely.
if you're non-denominational. It doesn't matter if you're Baptist, you're Methodist, you're Catholic. Obviously, we're going to have some different views than some of you guys as being you're considered non-denominational, right?
That's what I'm non-denominational.
So, and I consider myself a little more on the charismatic side. So I'm not, a lot of Baptists aren't going to agree with some of the things I say, but I do try to stay as Bible-based as I can. So I have spent some time in some Baptist churches, so I understand
Right.
where they come from. I actually was a youth pastor in 2 churches. One was non-denominational. One was Disciples of Christ, which leans more closely towards the Methodist side. They probably are yelling at their car stereos right now. I know, right? But everybody's got slightly different views, slightly different ceremonial aspects. But at the end of the day, we're all the same, right? I mean, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. If that's your center, then that's where this podcast wants
You've
to
come
be.
to the right spot.
Right. So please voice your opinions online. Like Justin said, don't get too crazy with it. But we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to give some feedback. Maybe even read some of these comments or whatever. So, and then maybe even if we're lucky and we do this long enough, maybe we can do like a live call-in at some point, which would be cool.
This has been a Hear No Evil production. Get off me. Get down. No, get up. Get down. It's so damn hard to train these things. Here, get your book. In association with Hear No Evil, starring Chris Copeland and Justin McGill of, Hear No Evil. Thank you and good night.